Hello and welcome everybody to Booze Hour. I'm calling this a town hall today. A little bit different than what I normally do for live streams. This week I had another live stream lined up and we just had to shuffle some things around. Still wanted to jump on though because I've been meaning to do something like this, which is a bit more of a open Q&A. Answering folks' questions and also providing a bit of an update on things that are happening in the world of Booze Hour. Sorry if it seems like I'm a little bit distracted right now. I was trying to figure out what time I would jump on and do this, and then figured 15 minutes from now would be a great time. And so I spun everything up and got her going. But today, a couple things that are a little bit different. Not only this format, is different. But at the same time, I usually stream to LinkedIn and YouTube. But today I'm also streaming to Instagram. Now, Instagram doesn't actually let me stream through the streaming platform that I used. However, you can't really see it, but I actually have my phone kind of stuck up here, and the Instagram viewers get a little bit of a different view of my office. So incentive for them to jump on and check it out that way if you like. There's a bunch of folks on there, and I put out a couple different things on the Instagram as well. One other different thing is these stickers. So I got a couple of the old ones left, original ones I should say, and then a couple of the new ones there. I've left a link in the description of the video. So if you're watching via LinkedIn, you should see, if you click on more, you should see the description for the live stream here. And then you'll also see a link. Let me just check if it's there. Yeah, it's there. So you'll see a link for the stickers. Head over to that. You'll fill in name, email address, and mailing address, and I could turf the mailing address as soon as you throw that in. But then you'll be mailed a couple stickers, and then you'll be signed up for the Daryl and Boo newsletter as well. So double bonus there, all free if you're in North America for the stickers. Now, the the newsletter there I just sent out yesterday. I just sent out the Monday newsletter that comes out once a week on Mondays or Tuesdays if it's a holiday. And then there's also a monthly newsletter that will come out as well. So I'm going to start working on that throughout the day today as I get a couple moments here and there. And that one will be more of a summary. So summary of a few things to come, although I can't see too far ahead into the future. And I'll talk about things to come as well on this town hall here. But I will also be just kind of recapping things that have been happening over the month, just to give the people an idea of what they might want to check out. I realize everybody can't check out every single piece of content that we're putting out there. So at the same time, I think it'd be good if I could just kind of summarize what the highlights are. If you wanted to check out just what the best bits are going to be. I've always been meaning to actually cut up best bits, and I did that early on, cut out the best bits of certain episodes, but that takes a lot of time, and a lot of this is just kind of produced on the fly as you might be able to notice at times here. So I don't get to all of that stuff. I'll put an open invite out there if anybody wants to be an intern and donate 20 hours a week to an effort to help out Booze Hour. You're more than welcome to. I'm just kidding on that. It won't be 20, might be like 30 or 40. So other things that I wanted to talk about today. So I mean, this will go out into podcast format as well. I apologize for anybody who's listening to this and just, at this point, they're just listening to me ramble, but this is me getting a bunch of thoughts out with very sparse notes that I've kept for what I want to do. The other thing that I wanted to go over today, right, I was talking about the podcast. So in podcast format, Apple, Google, and Spotify, this is all available on there as well. What I found interesting in putting out all of this content lately, and I just wanted to talk about that for a while here, is that people consume content in different ways. There has been a great following on YouTube, and I think everyone who has subscribed on there, YouTube is probably the most helpful platform as far as just looking at where I should be paying attention to stuff and giving me feedback. But at the same time, being approved to be a LinkedIn Live broadcaster was a pretty big step. And so I realized that I can reach a greater audience on there. So I'm very thankful for that. Anybody who's watching right now, feel free to say hi. And again, apologies. I don't have a guest today. Today is a little bit of a different format and more of a Q&A. So kind of touching on putting out all this content, what I have done in the past few days is I've been recapping to folks kind of on a one-on-one basis what all this Booze Hour was about. And I'll put this out here as well so that it can reach more people, but just kind of retelling the story of how things came about with Booze Hour. Originally, when COVID first hit, and we were facing having to head home and not really visit any offices anymore. From my perspective, and from Daryl's perspective, and from our clients' perspective, they were facing sending their employees home and everybody having to work from home. I remember distinctly having one final meeting with a customer, and everything was a little bit uncertain at that point. Numbers were starting to go up, and there was a lot of concern. And after that meeting, I was like, you know what, we're entering what might be a short-term thing, but just in case, I'm gonna start beefing up some video content and get better at that. And so how this kind of spawned from there was that people were feeling pretty uncertain in the first few weeks of COVID, and I put together a virtual happy hour. There's a lot of that happening, people hanging out because everybody was just unsure of how to socially interact with others. And I had a virtual happy hour that ran daily at first there. In the first couple of days, it didn't have a name. But what did happen was there was cocktails. It was, towards the afternoon every day. And so, people could jump on and crack a beer or whatever drink they would like and join me for a drink to ease the afternoon. Well, that within a few days, I came up with a name for that. And so that became Booze Hour. And we had a lot of people joining for that. We had upwards of 50, 60 people on some days, and that was a great time. And there was no point to it whatsoever. I would put up silly thumbnails and I would recap the day, and I actually have recordings from many of them. And we had some, ongoing bits that were happening. There was what was it? There was the fox, stoned fox. That's what it was. Brian McHenry, who had this taxidermist who'd done a fox for him. But there was a meme out on the internet of this of a bad taxidermist who took roadkill basically, as opposed to animals that were hunted, and they didn't look as pretty as a nice hunted animal. cleanly killed would have looked. And he had that in the background, and that became one of the themes on the thumbnails. But we just had a great time doing this. Among other themes, there we had Peter Scheffler, who was the Tiger King, and that spawned into the Cypher King, his cybersecurity nickname. And from there, I thought, you know what? There's an appetite for people to kind of jump on and hang out. And so I'll take this booze hour and we can turn it into something else. And another thing that I was aiming to do is just keep in contact with everybody. So that was serving its need at the time, the need to keep in contact with folks. And at the same time, I'd been thinking of putting together a newsletter. And so that turned into a bit of a weekly video that myself and Daryl would shoot, and that evolved over time. And it was at first it was recorded and edited. And I would encourage you, if you haven't seen the early ones already, maybe you're only joining in via LinkedIn and you're not familiar with the background of Booze Hour and the YouTube channel. I would encourage you to head over to the YouTube channel. I always encourage people to subscribe. So there's a button down here. If you're watching via YouTube, hit subscribe on there. And if you're watching via LinkedIn, head over to the YouTube, which is youtube.com/Daryl and Boo, and hit subscribe on there. But flip back through the old videos because they're fun to look at now. Looking back, I can kind of laugh at myself, or my early days of editing. Still not like the best editor out there, but it was pretty good stuff. Just trying to figure out how we wanted to present things, how we wanted to present our F5 news and our F5 wares, but at the same time figuring out how are we going to interact with people, how are we going to make this interesting for folks, and keep them tuned in. So I encourage you to check out the old ones. They're pretty neat to go through. I will also take a second to remind folks that this can be a live Q&A, so you can ask me anything on here. And you guys know me in that a lot of the questions and topics that come up during these discussions are not necessarily F5 related, commonly not F5 related on the Monday stuff, because the Monday stuff that we do and that's only on LinkedIn. That's only on YouTube. So for folks on LinkedIn, you might not understand what I'm referring to there. But on Mondays, myself and Daryl jump on live, and we're just there for a half hour on usually Monday mornings. And we're just kind of doing a quick, hey, hello, grab a coffee if you just want to hang out with us and listen to what we've been up to. There's no need for you to share anything, but we'd love for folks to jump on and share something that they've been up to as well. The idea is just kind of communication back and forth if possible, and also bringing on a guest and sharing stories with them as well. And so, going back to where I was heading with that, if you check out some of the older stuff on YouTube, pretty funny to check out how, I was editing a lot of the audio. There's a lot of ums and ahs that I was pulling out. I still do that a lot, but that was something that I was really keen to remove from the audio there, and that kind of evolved. And we had a couple recorded videos, and then we pivoted into doing the live stuff eventually. At the same time, within a few weeks, I started up Booze Hour. Booze Hour was, the idea behind that was I wanted to continue on with what was interesting for folks, which was having conversations with folks. So the Booze Hours that I would have over Zoom, those were a lot of getting to know other people. And what I really wanted to do was get a focus on certain people and have them kind of featured on a live stream. And so I did that with something called Booze Hour Community Edition. And there's a great, if you head over to YouTube, there's a playlist for that, and you can check out all the previous ones that I'd done. And they're just great stories that I was sharing on there. And I will actually highlight a bunch of them as well, because I think there's certain ones that I think would be universally fun for people to check out. that, and there's something called Booze Hour Cloud Edition. So still just trying to provide a way for people to learn something during this time. And you could be learning something over, from an F5 perspective, or you could be learning something from one of our F5 partners as well, because there's a lot of people that I work with that are at other companies that can have a lot to share as well. So those were those were all the pieces of content that I've put out, and it's just been amazing to watch that kind of grow into a bit of a community. In that, when I chat with folks, I have something to share with them that builds on top of the live streams that I do. So things that, ongoing fun things like having a guitar that I don't actually know how to play, but over time, if you were watching the weekly updates, we added in guitar lessons on there. So anybody else who has a guitar that they don't know how to play can go through 8 weeks worth of lessons. And they're 5-minute lessons. Now, the actual work that you need to put in, quickly discovered, is more than 5 minutes, but there's 5 minutes worth of instruction, and then you're on your own and need to practice a couple hours a week at least to get decent at guitar. But in doing so, I was able to learn how to strum a few chords. So hopefully folks can get some value out of that as well in strumming some chords and playing a couple songs that were on there. One of the songs only requires you to know 2 chords, and so anybody could pick up and do one of those. But I've had conversations with folks about guitars, a number of conversations on that, actually. Had conversations with folks about my garden, which I was featuring on a couple episodes as well, and got some tips from folks on there, or people just kind of sharing the progress on their gardens. So that was really fun to be able to do that and share that with folks, and take our minds off of some of the things that are happening. So that was kind of the history of Booze Hour. Now, coming up ahead, you'll notice that there's been a little bit of a break with the live streams, and some of that is just scheduling on my part. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world of F5, not just on the live stream stuff that I do that's outward facing, but there's a lot of stuff that's been happening, and there's been some PTO that I've been taking as well, which has been really good. And I've shared some of the stuff that I've been doing on PTO, and some folks have shared back stuff that they've been doing as well. But just with all that, it was good to kind of take a break and reset a little bit. There was still lots of content coming out, but just a couple pieces were not being streamed. And going forward, there will continue to be more streams, but just kind of refocusing a little bit, and actually not just refocusing, but actually zooming in a little bit on some of the topics that folks have found interesting. And one of those has been digital transformation. And how relevant is that right now? Like the idea of digital transformation, taking a business where you might have processes that are very human driven, paper driven, and taking those processes and turning them digital, and so that your business can react faster and be able to even transact in the current state of things. So that is something that I've got a few folks already lined up, and I have a few more folks in line here. So maybe it's a little bit of a series. I don't want to call it a series and turn it into a thing necessarily, but it'll all be under the brand of Booze Hour. And through that, just having more discussions, hopefully more local folks as well, with a Vancouver focus on this. I realize I have viewers from all over the place, but primarily my goal is to chat with folks that are from Vancouver or have some sort of relevance to Vancouver. So I might chat with people that are outside of Vancouver, but hopefully bring value to the Vancouver audience on here. So a couple things on digital transformation that will come up. I think some really interesting pieces, 2 or 3 people kind of already lined up for the coming weeks as well. So those would be really interesting chats that we'll have on there. Also upcoming, it looks like, as things, I realize numbers in British Columbia are starting to be a little bit of a concern again, and we want to nip that. But at the same time, people are starting to kind of venture out a little bit And so with that, I'll probably be actually out and about a little bit more, and hopefully bring some content about where we are, and things that we are doing. By we, I mean myself and Daryl, as we venture out a little bit more and have engagements with folks that might be in person at a distance. So that's some content to look forward to as well. And on this, I mean, I have a million ideas in my head, but I don't want to share everything, because everything won't necessarily happen. But those are two things that I think are pretty firm. I mean, the guests that are coming up, those ones are pretty solid ones. But besides that, they're heading out and being able to film stuff outside will be fun as well. So before, those were all the main things that I wanted to cover with everybody. If there's any questions, please ask them. Throw them in the comments. I'm happy to field anything that people might have as burning questions. But otherwise, what I did want to do is I wanted to talk about give you guys a summary of really cool discussions that I've had that you might want to check out. And these are all found on the YouTube channel. So some of the content, LinkedIn is kind of interesting. It's not quite like YouTube, which is really built for video, obviously, but LinkedIn added video later on, the live streaming video. There's still a couple nuances to it, so it's way easier to find all of the past content on the YouTube channel, and also interactions and stuff are a little bit easier on there. So not to annoy LinkedIn, but if you can head over to the YouTube channel, click subscribe on there. That's going to be a little bit more easier to work with. And all you need, if you're not familiar with subscribing on YouTube, because I realize not everybody does that and consumes YouTube in that way, you just head over, sign in with a Google account, and then you can click subscribe. Now, a couple of pieces of content that I wanted to highlight for folks, and these are maybe not in any particular order as my favorite ones, because all of them are my favorite pieces of content. All of the folks that have been on have been amazing guests, but some of the more memorable ones, I would say Ethan Banks was a really cool one. Anybody who's in the networking space should have, at this point, consume some sort of content from packet pushers. And for folks who are not in the networking space and unfamiliar with packet pushers, about 10 years ago, Ethan Banks and Greg Farrow formed or kind of aligned their blogs that they were already writing on, and they created something called Packet Pushers together, and that became just evolved into a full media outlet. But the initial stuff was blogs and podcasts that they did, and they provided commentary on the industry, and it was something that I consumed a lot. And it gets everybody into the latest news and trends as far as networking goes, and it's a really big and popular site. So he was one of my more famous guests that came on, and just the conversation that I had with him was really neat, in that we talked about community and what he was able to put together on there, and what that's resulted in, and the shift in his career. Sorry, I got a call on my LinkedIn video here, or my Instagram video. So that was just a really cool to be able to have him on. He's the nicest guy out there. And at the same time, just had a great moment there where he talked about how he was able to build something that allowed him to employ his friends, which he thought was an amazing thing, because now he's actually able to help somebody else put food on their table by providing them a way to plug in and create an income for themselves as well. And for other folks that contribute to there, it's a way for them to move their careers forward. So, he was obviously and visibly proud of that. And that was just a really cool moment in the, in that podcast there, and in that live stream there. The next one that was really cool, I would say, would be the one that I did with David Wood and building organizations that do good. David Wood is a guy that he doesn't have to work. He is, well, I mean, I don't know that for certain, but I'm pretty sure, just from what he alludes to there. However, he does continue to work, and he works really hard, and he donates so much of his time to a foundation that he started a long time ago called Kina. And for folks that are unfamiliar with it, and David speaks about it very passionately, Kina is an organization that helps at-risk girls in Nepal get education where they wouldn't normally be getting education. You know, it's one of those countries where if you are a girl, a female or woman, you're expected to work and get married pretty early, and run a family, and being able to have a career, if you choose to want, and if you want to have a career like you can easily in other parts of the world, like here in North America, that's not as much of an option out there, but it is when it is facilitated by Kina. So they can get girls into their program, and they can provide them all the education and get them education post-secondary as well. So education through the grade school age, and then also get them into post-secondary education as well. And it's just amazing what he's been doing there. And at the same time, he runs a company called Wirefire. He's the founder of that. And again, the way that he runs the company, and this isn't necessarily an advertisement for Wirefire. None of that actually was. We were really talking about Kina, but Wirefire is an F5 partner, and we're very honored to work with them. They just run their organization in a way that it's a B Corp, and so they do good. They're measured on some very strict numbers on how they perform as a company. And it's just really cool to see that before profits, it's more important to run a great company where people are happy and where they're contributing to society. So I thought that was excellent to hear him talk about that. So that's a really cool one to check out. And then also the one that I did with Alaji, which happens to be the one that has the most views as well. That was a really cool one. Alaji is just a really special guy. I've known him for a while now, and everybody who does know him just knows him for his infectious smile. He's always happy. I don't know what he's taken for that, but the guy is just always cheerful, always smiling, and just always positive. And he's always somebody who goes out of his way to say hello, how you doing? And he is also someone who came from Gambia. So he came from a third world country, essentially, immigrated into the US at 16 years old on his own, and then started working at McDonald's, got his education, discovered computers at McDonald's. So he didn't even grow up with computers. Like a common question that myself and Daryl will pose to our guests is, hey, where did you first started using computers? What was your first computer? For Alaji, he didn't get into computers until later in life. I mean, not that late, but he didn't grow up with them. And he bought a used computer, a refurbished computer, and has grown his career from McDonald's into working at a bank, and then eventually taking on a bigger role at a bank, and eventually getting into Canada, and then moving up through different roles until the point where he's now the director of solutions at CDW Canada. And I'm sure his career is not pausing there. I mean, I'm sure he's going to continue to do amazing things on there. But if anybody wants to hear an inspirational story of why there's a lot of opportunity out there for anybody who's just willing to put in the work, that is a story just about that right there. Is somebody who's be able to just put in the hours, get passionate about something, study, do the work, contribute, and then just be a good person as well. Somebody that people would love to work with, and that's Alaji. So really cool story. So those are three that I encourage you all to check out. If anything, if you haven't checked out any of the content, those are three that I think are pretty special. All of them are pretty special, though. Those ones are just kind of resident in my mind as well because they are more recent ones. But there's been some really cool ones, like the early ones. And I thank all the guests for coming on when it was, less than 50 subscribers that we're watching. Now on LinkedIn, between LinkedIn and YouTube, there's thousands of people that have access to this content and can see this content. But the early days were less. Robin that came on, and he was the first guest that was on the community edition of Booze Hour. Jeff Hayner came on, and he's the owner of my gym. And he talked about digitizing his business and adapting to COVID. There's a guy named Jake King who is well known in the Vancouver cybersecurity industry, CEO and founder of CMD. Amazing one to check out as well. A young guy who's started a company that's going to go places. That one was pretty cool. Duraj Goel he's an amazing guy as well. Like, if you want to know about digital transformation, that is a great one to check out, and just his views on that and his views on transforming companies and working with startups. Awesome episode. Alex Dow, everybody knows Alex Dow, and I don't think enough people have heard his story. Maybe you have heard bits and pieces, or maybe you know him on a little bit more of a intimate basis, and so you can ask him about that, or you've had those chats over beers. But if you don't know Alex Dow's story, you can hear about Alex on there. Tanya Janka from She Hacks Purple. She's been doing some amazing things. Check out her new company called We Hack Purple as well. She does a lot of stuff around cybersecurity education, and she's just an amazing person. Bayer Sai, he's the original software engineer for Hootsuite, which is a really well-known company here in Vancouver. And he talks about the early days of that, and that was pretty cool one to check out. And then Robert Johnson, who is an old friend of mine from high school, just talking about getting into triathlon necessarily, but was always an athlete. But then learning about triathlons, and then getting to the point where he actually won worlds for his age group in the International Triathlon Union, I think it is. So that was a really cool one. So good ones to check out. Those are three right there, three of them right there that were pretty cool ones that I highlighted, but all of them are pretty cool to check out. That's probably all that I have for folks today. So again, this was just more of a town hall. I just wanted to jump on and say, hey, this is what's happening these days. This is how we got to this point, how I actually became a LinkedIn Live broadcaster as well, which if folks don't realize, there's a bit of a process to that, an application process. And I wasn't approved in my first application, but eventually it did get approved after a few more. So getting to this point, having an audience on here, being able to interact with you all and connect with you all is just been really cool to be able to do that. This week as well, was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, is this week was actually meant to be the week of the Vancouver F5 users group. And when I started at F5, it was really important to me to build that community. And that was something that I took upon myself to really focus on delivering valuable content through there, making sure people walk away with something that they learned and that they could meet each other, other F5 users, share stories, good and bad, war stories or just success stories. And we did that pretty consistently over every 6 months at F5 up until now. And so it's, when I look at the canceled calendar entry in my calendar, and it's I kind of miss being able to see everybody, and I realize many of you are watching via here, so this is a hello to you. I'm sorry that we can't be together this week, but hopefully we can be together soon enough. And for now, we can connect on here, and I'll continue to try to put out valuable content for you all. Try to make sure that everybody stays connected. Try to share stories that are good and bad. And, just make sure that I'm here if you all need me. All right, that's all that I have for everybody. So in closing, just check out the newsletter, darylandboo.com. You can subscribe on there. Inside the description on this video on LinkedIn, if you hit the see more, then you'll see a link to actually be able to subscribe to the newsletter and get free stickers. If you're already subscribed to the newsletter, you can still hit that link and just throw in your details, and I'll send you stickers as well. North America only, please. If you're watching via LinkedIn, but you want to see all the past content, and if you could, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe on there. That helps me out a lot. So that's youtube.com/DarylandBoo. Head over there, click subscribe. All I'm asking is that you might want to check out a couple of those past pieces of content on there. And then that's it. Otherwise, I will be back next week with at least one or two streams that'll be happening. And hope everybody is staying safe. And we'll see you next time. All right. Bye, folks. Thanks for checking this out today. If you're watching via YouTube right now, go ahead and click subscribe down below. Also click the bell for notifications. That way you will find out when we are dropping a new video or when we're going live. Also, there's darylandboo.com. If you head over to that, leave your name and email address, we will drop a weekly technical newsletter in your inbox every Monday. Also, this is available via podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Head over to one of those, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to us in the car on your commute or during a walk or a run. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.